Well, so let's see how about if black continue with castle. Bishop b4, which after that we played king f1. So let's see castle. And bishop c7. Yes, also the bishop is going here because knight c7 has, I think, similar problems. In this type of position, usually we have to worry about that. Maybe if he attacks the bishop and he takes the rook, knight takes this, and the knight will be trapped. Materially, it's even worse than before because two pieces for the rook. So it's not really good. Okay, of course he can still play bishop g3, but yeah, it's not so comfortable. I don't know how about e5, for example. Yes, these are all interesting things. The knight a8, e takes f4, and there is the same story. The knight is here, so I don't really recommend this kind of moves, especially practically. So let's play the more forced bishop c7 and queen e8. Let's see how about if bishop b4 now. Knight d2 here, but king f1 would be same like before, so I think king f1 would be the easiest answer. And queen e8 and a3. So that is completely okay. Bishop c5 e5. b6 b4. a6 9 d6. Bishop takes d6, e takes d6, and it's slightly better for white. So it's a completely acceptable way. But knight e2 is also good now because I already reached the bishop c7. So maybe this is even more accurate. In here we couldn't play this because e5, and he closed my bishop. But if I could play the bishop c7 already, then I can come back with the knight, and maybe this is okay. Knight d6 takes, and maybe we can say it's kind of good. b6 castle, bishop b7, rook c1, and white is slightly better. Why white is slightly better? Let's say about this position a bit. The point is that okay, black has a pawn up, but look this d6 bishop, extremely strong here because pin the knight, block the d6 pawn, and black doesn't have dark squared bishop which would attack that bishop and chase away from d6. So this bishop is probably at this moment is more valuable than a rook. So that is very obvious. We have compensation for the pawn. Let's see how about queen e8. If queen e8, then we go to knight d6, little bit similar like in that variation. Bishop takes d6, bishop takes, and b6. Yes, because what is the point here? Black would like to continue the development also. So what else can he do? Queen, rook. These pieces are completely stacked in his position. The only break which I can imagine that is the f5. But after f5 I can also, for example, take it. Knight can't take back because the f8 rook is hanging. Rook takes f5, and then at least we play castle. But maybe we have already attacking move also like g4. The rook goes somewhere, for example f8, and queen e2 followed by long castle, and white is fine. Also great initiative for the sacrificed material. Completely acceptable position. Okay, how about b6? After that we can just continue normally with castle, bishop b7, and after rook c1 there is a good compensation for the material also. So it's simply compensation. Okay, alright. Let's go back a bit. And this was the knight c6. How about d6 immediately? d6 immediately is a bit similar. Yeah, because knight c6, bishop c4. After d6, we play rook c1. I don't say this is the only move, because I'm sure bishop c4 is also a completely acceptable option here. And I think knight c6 would be transposing to the game, to that, if he would play d6 there. But then we will have something weak, knight b5 against the d6, maybe after castle, so I don't really believe in this. And rook c1. But rook c1 is okay. Maybe after bishop c4 still he can play knight e7, maybe a different developing move he can do. So rook c1, a6. Yes, against knight b5 he has to be defend, otherwise that would be too strong. But let's see, how about, for example, e5. Bishop g5, f6, and bishop e3. So this was a nice provoking move, because the knight couldn't developing properly, because always knight d5 and the spin is extremely unpleasant. So f6 is forced. Yeah, because the queen also doesn't really have a really good square. So for example, if the queen goes to a5, we have several ways. Probably kind of knight d2 we have also, followed by knight c4 or knight b3, and he has some trouble with the queen and bishop. In case of f6, we can come back to bishop e3 and bishop e6. If bishop takes e3, after exchanging the dark squared bishops, black will have a hard time to defend the d6 pawn. F takes e3 and knight h6. If bishop e6, then with knight b5 we can immediately create an attack against the d6 pawn and against the c7 square also, so against the a8 rook. So white is clearly better here. Knight h6 and bishop c4. What was the point here if we would play knight b5 right now? What would be the difference? Maybe he wants to play knight c6, and if knight takes d6, then king e7. And suddenly this is not so easy for him, because for white, because we have to take the bishop. Yeah, if goes back is also okay, but we have it's a double pawn structure. Maybe it's also an option, it's also a possibility. Probably the text move was even more stronger, the bishop c4, because after bishop c4 he just can't castle. So it's a very, very normal developing move. And and okay, knight a6, castle, and knight c7, and rook f2. Let's see, what about this one? Because now both knights are on the edge of the board, but of course he would like to come back with that soon. And now he's controlling the b5, d5 squares. Moreover, he prepares for kind of bishop e6. So he really would like to neutralize the position, simplify also, and then castle as quick as possible. Rook f2. Rook f2 is a very creative idea to come with rook d2 and attack against the d6. And king e7. If bishop e6 instead, then just knight b5 and and the d6 pawn is in trouble again. So if bishop takes c4, then knight takes d6, or if knight takes b5, then we don't take the knight, because then bishop d7 and he's still safe, but we take the bishop. The bishop on e6 is very unpleasant, very uncomfortable for black, because almost can't move from that. The light squares are extremely strong, extremely weak for black's position, for black, and for white is very strong thanks for that bishop. So that's why bishop takes c4 is more more logical, but then knight takes d6 and he can't castle, so also a hopeless position for black. So let's go back. Let's see king e7 instead of bishop e6. But now we just play a4. There are some critical moments when we don't need to hurry at all. So if his king is in the middle, he went to king e7 already, sometimes we don't need to find any break because maybe there is no, like here. But if we play a normal continuation like a4, block the b5 a little bit, that is that can be good. First of all, we can't roll this square, but maybe in a long term we can play for bishop a2, queen b3 also sometimes, and in this diagonal we can have threats. Okay, now still he has bishop e6, but that's why I said in a long term probably we will exchange the knight here or here. So let's imagine a position: bishop goes back to a2, then knight d5 check, knight takes, queen takes, and there is no bishop e6, I can't roll that diagonal, and his knight also can't move because threatening with checkmate on f7. So extremely unpleasant situation for black. White is better here, objectively. Okay, alright. This was the bishop takes e3, f takes e3, when white pawn structure became bad but the d6 pawn is weak. Let's see how about bishop e6. After bishop e6, white strategy will be also similar. Knight b5, that just jump here. Knight c6. Yes, because if a6 instead, then bishop takes c5, d takes c5, knight d6 check. King e7, knight takes b7. So we go slowly forward. Queen d1, rook, king d1. And bishop takes a2. But why we took back with the king? Because the rook will be more useful on the c file. So for example, if rook d1, then he can play knight d7 and protect this pawn. But if king takes, then if knight d7, still I can take this pawn. So that's why bishop takes a2. Knight takes c5, we take it, and knight h6. Okay, he also continued development. Now the rook can also come somewhere here, and yeah, somehow maybe finish the development a little bit. Okay. Knight d2. What about with knight d2? Multiple move. We avoided this knight g4 stuff because okay, not avoided, wasn't a strong threat. I can protect that without any problem. Yeah, maybe knight d3 is the easiest, but if he doesn't come, maybe I will play f3. My pawn structure is very nice, and his knight can't come to g4. So also, yeah, white is slightly better because materially we are equal. But okay, for example, let's say rook d8, we can play simply king e1, go out of the pin, maybe knight goes to d7, and even the a6 is also hanging. So the normal development with the last few pieces is also make some problems for him. Okay, so this was the a6 bishop c5 thing. Let's see how about knight c6. Bishop takes c5, d takes c5. So we took it, and we don't take it immediately. First of all, we play queen d6 move. What a nice way, because okay, of course to take back this pawn was also an option, but queen takes d1, king d1, long castle check, he can come very very quickly by tempo. So the problem is that sometimes we win back the material, but we lose the initiative, which is also a very important factor. So queen d6, queen takes d6, knight takes d6, king e7, knight takes b7, because yeah, it was forced. I was threatening with knight c7, the bishop was also hanging, so it was really really forced. Knight d6, king d7, knight takes b7, and I win back a pawn. Moreover, the c5 is also lost. Okay, he can also come with rook b8, and my pawns are also weak, like this is hanging immediately, and this will be also. But bishop a6 come with development. Bishop takes a2 would be too greedy because rook takes c5 and I am more active. So bishop c8 is actually the question. But if bishop c8, we can play knight takes c5, because with this we just protect the a6 bishop, and the knight also coming back. Otherwise it was hanging a bit. Bishop takes a6, knight takes a6, rook takes b2. So finally materially is equal, but we are more active. Let's see the position, because a bit complicated. I can't take this, yes, because rook b1 check and I lose the h1 rook. So this is a little problem. But if I play, for example, castle, because however it says in the endgame we don't really need to castle because the king is better in the center. Now it's not so, because still there are rooks. Knights are also unpleasant there, so rook fd1 will also come. So if our king is in the middle, the rook can't come from our own king. So now the castle was the most logical, and probably white's chances are a bit better, because still black couldn't finish the development properly, so his situation is a bit harder here. Alright, good. Let's go back. And this was the e5 bishop g5 stuff after the d6 rook c1. Let's see how about if he would play a6. e5. White immediately gains the initiative, because if black wants to avoid everything like bishop d6 before with this d6 move, knight b5, he has to, generally he also has development disadvantage, but still he has to play a few pawn moves, which after that he will have more development disadvantage if he wants to avoid everything. But then white should already play a strong breaking move with this e5, d5, bishop d3. Simply a normal development we can do here. Knight c6, short castle, knight g7. Black also looks developing, and however castle is not working because of the Greek gift with bishop takes h7, but maybe knight g6, and after that he can already, and we have a pawn down, he could play somehow the d5 properly. So still now we need some accurate continuation. Knight e2, this is still good. Bishop b6, knight g3, we go this way. Knight g6, bishop g5, f6, e takes f6. Because why? Let's see. If he doesn't push it, if he moves with the queen, for example, c7, just in this pin, we have knight h5 and we create a strong attack against the king side. And for example, if castles, it's pretty dangerous, like knight takes g7, king g7, bishop f6 check. Yeah, it's good. King g8 and queen d2, followed by queen h6. Queen g7, it's very, very dangerous. Probably it's winning for white already. Not really clear how he will avoid the checkmate. So that's why f6 he also tries something. E takes f6, g takes f6, bishop h6, rook g8 and queen b3. And I think without any problem we can say that black is undeveloped, his king is in the middle, so white has a great initiative. So this is more than compensation, this is already initiative. We will come with rook f e1 also, after that sometimes knight f5 too. So he is simply in trouble. Okay, alright. Let's go back to the main line, because we also covered the d6. How about the a6? Bishop e2, sometimes just normal development. Knight e7, castle, knight bc6, and e5. Also, like before, this e5 is very typical, especially when white can play, if black didn't play the d6, especially in this kind of position. We do it. Castle, rook c1, and bishop a7. How about if knight g6 instead? Bishop g3 back, bishop e7. After some time the bishop has to leave, otherwise it will be in some kind of X-ray motif. Bishop d3, also activate the bishop, and f5. Yeah, he should do something, otherwise he will be bad. The d6 can't move, yes, because if he would, the d pawn, because he takes d6, bishop takes d6, bishop g6, bishop takes g3, bishop takes, maybe f7 or h7, good question, which one? Maybe f7, maybe rook takes back, queen d8, knight d8, and h takes g3, and white is better, because now this bishop is bad, knight will probably come here, rook will also come in these ways, maybe knight e4, knight d6 also. So his situation is simply better for white. So d6 was not a optimal option. f5, e takes f6. Usually we take it for en passant, and g takes f6. Bishop takes f6 was also not really good, because we can reach the d6 square again. Maybe first of all we take the g6 knight, h takes, and now go to d6, and white is better here. Also black is a pawn, but the same story, completely like before. Material advantage for him, but very, very active position for white, and black's pieces are completely stacked. So that his development is really poor. Let's see how about rook takes f6. Knight g5, exclamation mark, and knight f8. Yes, what is the point of knight g5? We are prepared for queen h5. The current threat is knight takes h7. So for example, if he would be careless and play d5, then we have knight h7, king h7, queen h5 check, and then bishop takes g6, and this is winning for white. So he has to do something here, and if h6, then knight e4 is coming by tempo, and knight e6 is also coming by tempo because the g6 knight is also hanging here. So white is winning. So h6 also doesn't help. That's why still this knight f8 kind of passive move is the less problem for him. But of course here we also continue the play. Knight e4, knight g4, rook g6, bishop d6. Now with the bishop, very important to come here, otherwise d5 will come next time, next move. So very important to come here and block the pawn. b6, bishop b1, just go back, bishop b7, g3. I like this type of move so much. In only that case it would be problem if the queen could come to the diagonal somehow and I have mating threads, but it's in this position is impossible to imagine that. And in this case this g3 is really good because this bishop has some x-ray threat on diagonally connect with the rook, so we can have problems on g2. But after g3 we completely avoid his dreams. And we can focus on our play also later on. Rook h6, bishop f4. Suddenly go back, because if the rook moves somewhere, then maybe with the knight we will jump on d6 already. Bishop takes, and okay, at least queen takes, and white is very good. Clearly better. So g5 was still the question, but now we play again. Nice continuation. Knight takes g5, bishop g5, and after queen g4, white is better. White is clearly better. Okay, because there is no rook g6. Yes, no rook g6 because I can take it. Okay, let's go back. How about g takes f6? Bishop takes g6. Usually we don't like to take it, but now we have a concrete attack against the king. Knight h4, king f7. If queen e8 instead, then I think we will have several continuation, at least knight e4, and I come to the center, but knight a4 is also strong, and go to b6. So he has dark squared bishop, but also even those dark squares are weak. And in case of king f7, okay, at least I have knight takes g6 and perpetual checks. So draw is usually in a sharp position, we can say in a preparation this is fine. It not means that this will always come out and everybody will know. Usually we can be happy if we have this option. But of course other possibilities maybe we also had, but I think this is okay. Maybe at least we can play bishop d6 also, and also I have to say we have kind of compensation. Okay, how about bishop a7? If he goes back instead of knight g6, then we have bishop d3, knight g6, bishop g3, the same story, b5, e takes d6, f5, this was his ideal positional pawn sacrifice back, but then come with f5 and his position is not so pushed already. Then b4, h3, bishop d7, and after rook e1. white position is also more promising.